Judge blocks Saturday's grizzly hunts in Wyoming, Idaho. File, in this Sept. 25, 2013. File photo, a grizzly bear cub searches for fallen fruit beneath an apple tree a few miles from the north entrance to Yellowstone National Park in Gardner, Mont. A judge will decide whether the lower 48 state's first grizzly bear hunting season in more than 4 decades will open as scheduled the weekend of August 31, 2018. Alan Rogers, the Casper Star-Tribune via AP. File, Missoula, Mont. AP, a federal judge on Thursday temporarily blocked the opening of the first public grizzly bear hunts in Wyoming and Idaho in more than 40 years, as he considers whether the government was wrong to lift federal protections on the animals. U.S. District Judge Dana Christensen's order came just 2 days before the states prepared to open their grizzly bear hunting seasons on Saturday. It will remain in effect 14 days. The threat of death to individual bears posed by the scheduled hunts is sufficient to justify a delay in the state's hunting seasons, Christensen wrote. The move marked the victory for wildlife advocates and Native American tribes that sued over the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's decision in 2017 to lift federal protections for 700 grizzly bears in and around Yellowstone National Park. "We're thrilled," said Mike Garrity, the executive director for Plaintiff Alliance for the Wild Rockies. Now the judge has time to rule without grizzly bears being killed starting Saturday morning. The plaintiffs had argued the bears still face threats to their survival. Federal wildlife officials say the bears are thriving. Fewer than 24 bears would be allowed to be killed in the hunts. Todd Hose, an accountant and hunter from Gillette, Wyoming, expressed disappointment in Christensen's ruling. Opponents of the hunt, he said, were ignoring the frequent grizzlies' attacks on livestock, the impact Bruins have on populations of deer and elk, and the threat grizzlies pose to human. Hose applied for but did not receive a grizzly bear hunting tag. "They're just looking at it from the bear's perspective," he said. "The way that nature works is a balance and we don't have that balance. There are too many bears now," hunt opponents claim the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's decision last year that Yellowstone grizzlies are no longer a threatened species was based on faulty science. They also say they don't trust that the 3 states that have taken over bear management will ensure the bears' survival. They want the judge to reclassify the bears as threatened. Among their arguments in court, attorneys for advocacy groups question how other threatened grizzly populations in the lower 48 states would fare if the Yellowstone bear's status changed. They also said the Federal Wildlife Agency ignored recent spikes in overall bear deaths that, when hunting is added to the mix, could cause an unanticipated population decline. Roger Phillips, spokesman for Idaho Fish and Game, said he wasn't aware of the ruling and did not have an immediate comment. Prior to Christensen handing down Thursday's order, Wyoming officials said they were willing to make adjustments to the state's hunting season, but placed a condition on doing so. Eric Peterson, Wyoming's senior assistant attorney general, suggested the judge leave Wyoming, Montana and Idaho in charge of managing the bears, even if he decides the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service needs to revise its rule declassifying grizzlies as threatened. The likelihood of any significant harm to the population is essentially nil, Peterson said. Department of Justice attorneys said the Fish and Wildlife Service considered all the plaintiffs' arguments and proceeded with lifting protections because there was no threat of extinction to the bears now or in the foreseeable future. Peterson and attorneys representing Montana and Idaho said the people most affected will be the farmers and ranchers who live in grizzly territory and have increasing conflicts with bears attacking livestock. Those people have been cooperative with conservation efforts, but that attitude may change if federal protections are restored, they said. The population of grizzlies living in Yellowstone was classified as a threatened species in 1975, when its number had fallen to 136. Fish and Wildlife Service initially declared a successful recovery for the Yellowstone population in 2007, but a federal judge ordered protections to remain in place while wildlife officials studied whether the decline of a major food source, whitebark pine seeds, could threaten the bear's survival. In 2017, the federal agency concluded that it had addressed all threats, and ruled that the grizzlies were no longer a threatened species needing restrictive federal protections. That prompted 6 lawsuits challenging the agency's decision. Those lawsuits have been consolidated into one case that Christensen heard on Thursday. Idaho's hunting quota is 1 bear. Wyoming's hunt is in 2 phases, Sept. 1 opens the season in an outlying area with a quota of 12 bears, and Sept. 15 starts the season in prime grizzly habitat near Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. 1 female or 9 males can be killed in those areas. It would be Wyoming's first grizzly hunt since 1974 and Idaho's first since 1946. 12 hunters in Wyoming and 1 in Idaho have been issued licenses out of the thousands who applied. Montana officials decided not to hold a hunt this year. Montana held grizzly hunts until 1991 under an exemption to the federal protections that allowed 14 bears to be killed each fall. Bear hunting is not allowed in Yellowstone or Grand Teton. Brown reported from Billings. This version corrects that Montana's last grizzly hunt was in 1991. Copyright 2018 The Associated Press. All rights reserved. This material may not be published, broadcast, written or redistributed.